Hello and welcome back again. In this video, I'm going to explain briefly the difference between object and edit mode, and then really talk about object origins and why they're so important. So in Blender, we have many modes you can have the viewport in. Right now is object mode, which is the default mode where you can see and grab and move all of the objects that you have on screen, whether it's a mesh or a light or the camera. And now you can see if we select the cube and go to this drop down menu in the top, there are a lot of different modes we can swap to. Right now, all we really care about is object and edit mode. You can click that to select it, or just press tab to swap between the two. Edit mode is what you use to edit your meshes or any other object. And this is where you take this cube and you would turn it into whatever you're trying to make in Blender, whether that be a cube, or this is where you would actually do all of the modeling that you see yourself doing in Blender, where you take your cube and you would grab these vertices and move them around, add more vertices, whatever, change the shape, the size, until you have that sword or car or keyboard or whatever it is you're trying to model. The basic controls are exactly like before. You can click on vertices to select them, hold shift and click to select other ones. You can highlight them and use grab, rotate, and scale, just like before. If you want to see through, to see like this hidden vertex back here, you can use Alt-Z to toggle X-ray view. Same in object mode, same shortcut. Now, I don't want to get too into editing. This is not a modeling video. Really, I just want to talk about the object origin and explain why it's so important to get the concept behind that. The object origin in Blender is this orange dot right in the center here of our cube. You can see if we select the camera, there's also that dot. And if we select our light, it's kind of hard to tell, but yeah, there's a dot right in the center there. And what that dot is basically, it is an infinitely small point that will tell Blender where in Blender your object. And if you press N to bring up this little side panel and make sure the item tab is selected, you can see the location of our object right now, our cube, is all 0, 0, 0 because it is right at the center of the Blender universe. Now, if we shift D to duplicate our cube and just move it on over here, you can see these values changed, and if you drag them around, the cube will move. To make this easier to see, I'm actually going to hit X and delete that cube, and instead we are going to shift A to bring up this add menu here. This is how you create all sorts of new objects in Blender. The cube here is a mesh, but to make it easier to distinguish, I'm going to add a UV sphere. So we'll scale it up a little so it sticks out of the cube and it's easier to see. Now you can see if I select either one of these, the location is the same, 0, 0, 0. And again, if we move this, let's just make this 3 meters, so it's over here, and you can see that that orange dot is in the same spot. Now all this seems obvious so far. However, the thing that's important to note is that, let's say I go into edit mode and we select the whole cube here. You can press A to select all in Blender, and press it twice to deselect all. We're going to select all of the vertices here, and then G, Y to move our cube this way. And now you can see that the cube is over here, the sphere is over here, and when we select the sphere, it says the location 0, 3, 0, but the cube is still all zeros. So Blender, when you ask Blender where is this cube, visually we see it over here because that's where I moved the mesh to in edit mode. But in object mode, we never touched it, so that dot is still in the same spot. And now if we grab it in object mode and move it over, now you can see these values changing. Now, a practical reason this is kind of important is because now, number one, if we rotate this cube, it's going to rotate as if it's rotating about that center point. And the reason that you want to care so much about this and pay so much attention to this is because there are a lot of things in Blender that are going to rely on the information of where is this cube. So if visually you're seeing it over here, and then you think, I really want to have the sphere here follow the cube. Now, there are a lot of ways to do that, but one thing you can do, there are object constraints in Blender. Not going to get too into this right now, we go to this tab here and we can select copy location. And then with the eyedropper here, click on the cube, and you can see that our sphere will snap right to where the cube is. Let's say what you really wanted was the sphere to be inside the cube and stay with it when I move the cube. That's not going to happen now because the origin of our cube is right here. So something you can do to fix this, if you ever model something and accidentally move this away from where you want the origin, what you can do is simply right click, go to set origin, and there are a bunch of options here to do it. Geometry to origin will snap the cube back to where the origin is, which does what we wanted to. Or you can do origin to geometry, which does the opposite. We'll bring the dot back to our cube and put it right in the center of whatever the geometry you have made is. Origin to 3D cursor will move the origin to the 3D cursor, which is this little red target here. You can actually move the 3D cursor by holding shift and right clicking to place it somewhere, or you can snap it to things by holding shift and hit S, and you'll get this wheel here. The two that I use the most often are either cursor to world origin to snap it back to its original spot, or cursor to selected to snap it to whatever object you have selected, which happens to be in the same spot right now. If we move this, you can see, bring it up here. And also you can snap objects to the cursor by holding shift and selection to cursor. I understand this one may have been a little bit confusing or not so straightforward, but hopefully the explanation of the origin there kind of helps you avoid any future headaches as far as, you know, maybe you model something and then, oh no, why is it rotating like this and not the way I want it to. Anyway, as always, if you have any questions, leave a comment, or if you have any requests for a video subject, please let me know. Thank you.